December 16, 1944, 5:30 a.m., Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The snow is falling so thick it swallows sound. Pine branches sag under fresh white weight. Somewhere in the frozen dark, engines growl to life. Low, heavy, metallic. German tank crews strike matches inside steel holes, cigarette tips glowing like distant fireflies. You can almost feel the cold biting through wool gloves, through bone, through resolve. This is supposed to be Hitler's miracle. Across the German lines, officers whisper it like a promise, a final, crushing blow that will split the Allied front in two. They call it Wacht am Rhein, the watch on the Rhine. One last gamble to change the war. And at the center of this gamble sit the beasts. King Tigers, Panthers, the finest armored machines Nazi Germany has ever built. Sepp Dietrich, commander of the 6th Panzer Army, surveys his armored columns with quiet confidence. He has heard all the jokes, all the mocking names the Americans give their tanks. Bronson, they call the M4 Sherman. Lights on the first strike. Burns every time. Dietrich believes none of these American machines can stop him. His intelligence officers confirm it. Thin armor, underpowered guns, inferior steel, mass-produced junk. Let them come. They will burn. Miles away, across frozen roads and forest tracks, American tank crews huddle inside their Shermans. The M4s shudder as engines idle in the cold. Condensation drips from helmet liners, fingers numb around grease-stained controls. So these men know the reputation. They've heard the same jokes. They've seen what German 88s and Panther guns can do. They've watched Shermans erupt like struck matchsticks in Normandy hedgerows. They know their tanks are not the strongest on the battlefield. But they also know something else. They know there are thousands more behind them, thousands more behind those, and thousands more still rolling off American assembly lines every single month. When the German artillery breaks the silence at dawn, the Ardennes explodes. Shells slam into American outposts with deafening force. Trees splinter. Foxholes collapse. Radios crackle with panicked calls. Entire sectors vanish into smoke and snow-blown debris. German infantry surge forward through gaps in the line, their white camouflage melting into the winter forest. By nightfall, entire American divisions are reeling backward. For the first time in months, the Allies are on the defensive in Western Europe. In Berlin, smiles spread. In German command bunkers, champagne corks quietly pop. The American army, they believe, is about to break. Inside a Sherman somewhere near the Lasime Gap, an American gunner watches the forest line through his periscope. Trees sway under shell shock. Snowflakes blur into drifting streaks. His breath fogs the optics. Then he sees it, a shadow between the pines. Then another, then half a dozen. The Panther tanks roll forward like armored predators, long barrels slicing through the smoke. Their engines roar with low, predatory confidence. German crews believe they are untouchable. The Sherman commander shouts fire. The American gun barks. The shell strikes the Panther's frontal armor and ricochets uselessly into the snow. The German tank answers. The Panther's 75mm round slams through the Sherman's hull like paper. The interior turns instantly into a furnace. Flames rip through fuel vapors. Ammunition cooks off in a violent chain reaction. The Sherman vanishes in a single white-hot flash, and the German tank just keeps rolling. For the first brutal days of the offensive, the German gamble seems to be working. Elite panzer divisions punch through thin American defenses. Fuel dumps are captured intact. U.S. units are cut off. Entire battalions retreat in confusion. At Bastogne, one of the most vital road junctions in Europe, the 101st Airborne is completely surrounded. Inside the German high command, the contempt deepens. Reports flood in. American armor destroyed by the dozens. Sherman wrecks burning along snow-choked roads. Panther and Tiger crews boasting of kill tallies that climb with every engagement. The German officers laugh at the idea that mass-produced American tanks could threaten their elite armored spearheads. Quantity is meaningless against quality, they say. They believe the Sherman horde will shatter itself against German steel. But something else is happening while German commanders celebrate early victories. Far to the south, General George S. Patton stands over a map table under bare bulbs, his jaws tight. His voice is clipped and sharp. The Germans have shown us their hand, he says, and we're going to cut it off. Patton does something no German planner believed possible. He turns an entire army north in 72 hours. Through icy roads, frozen highways, and shattered towns, Patton's Third Army begins moving at full speed. Convoys stretch for miles. Half-tracks grind through snowdrifts. Supply trucks churn non-stop. Mechanics work by lantern light to keep engines alive in the cold. And on the roads, the Shermans roll. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands. Fresh M4 South with improved armor. Shermans mounting the new high-velocity 76mm guns. Fireflies armed with British 17-pounders capable of killing Tigers. Recovery vehicles hauling wrecks aside to keep the advance moving. The scale is staggering. For every German tank destroyed, 2, 3, 4 American tanks take its place in the line. And they are coming straight for Bastogne, straight into the teeth of Germany's final armored gamble. In the German headquarters, officers still trust in their monsters. King Tigers will hold the line. Panthers will slaughter the counterattack. American tanks will burn like they always do. But fuel begins to run short, and ammunition grows scarce. And suddenly, the snowstorms they once welcomed as Allied obstacles turn against them, grounding supply aircraft and trapping German armor without resupply. The storm that once shielded their advance is now stranding their spearhead, and somewhere on the southern horizon the distant rumble grows louder. The Shermans are coming, and the mockery is about to turn into something else entirely. Fear. The snowstorm peaks the night Patton's columns strike north. Wind howls through shattered villages. Ice coats rifle barrels. Drivers lean forward over frozen windshields, knuckles white on steering wheels. The roads are clogged with wreckage, abandoned German trucks, smashed horse carts, burned-out American jeeps. Engineers work under fire just to clear a single lane wide enough for armor to pass. And then the Shermans come through. One by one at first. Then by platoons. Then by entire armored battalions rolling nose to tail through the Ardennes like a steel river, forcing its way uphill against gravity itself. Inside one tank, a 19-year-old loader named Frank Doyle slams shells into the breach as fast as his numb arms can move. His breath comes in tight clouds. The turret stinks of oil and cordite. The driver shouts over the engine whine. The commander stands half out of the hatch, scanning the forest with binoculars crusted in ice. Somewhere ahead, Bastogne is still surrounded. Somewhere ahead, German Panthers wait in ambush. And tonight, there is no stopping. The first major collision erupts near Chaumont. German tanks hold high ground along a forest ridgeline. Panthers sit dug in behind snow berms and knocked-over trees, their guns trained on the narrow approach road. Tank commanders are relaxed. They've crushed American advances all week. This will be no different. The lead Sherman crests the slope. A German gunner fires. The shell annihilates the Sherman's turret in a flash of flame and metal. The wreck slides backward down the icy road, burning like a funeral pyre. The German crews cheer inside their armored holes. Then the second Sherman crests the hill. Then the third, then the fourth. They do not stop. They do not hesitate. They push through the kill zone as if it doesn't exist. Shells slam into American lines from every direction. Shermans explode, tracks shatter, crews bail out burning. The snow is ripped open by fire and screaming steel. Still they keep coming. Within minutes, German gunners realize something is wrong. There are too many of them. Fireflies arrive at the front. British modified Shermans carrying the 17-pounder gun, a weapon that can punch through Tiger armor at range. They roll into firing positions behind burning wrecks, use the dead tanks as cover, and begin engaging German Panthers at distances the Germans thought safe. One Panther goes up in smoke, then another. Across the ridge, German commanders shout in disbelief. By morning, the road is littered with burned-out American and German tanks alike. But the difference is unmistakable. For every Panther destroyed, 3 more Shermans roll into the gap. For every German killed, 5 fresh American machines appear out of the blizzard. German radio operators send frantic reports up the chain. We are being overwhelmed by massed armor. We cannot stop them. We are running out of fuel. At Bastogne, the sound of engines grows day by day. At first, it is distant thunder, then it becomes a constant low roar on the horizon. Inside the town, the 101st Airborne huddles in frozen foxholes, rationing ammunition and medical supplies. Wounded men lie on church pews and cellar floors. German shells crash into the perimeter day and night. On December 26th, Sherman tanks of the 4th Armored Division burst through German lines south of the town. The lead tank reaches the perimeter and fires its main gun point-blank into a German roadblock. Bastogne is no longer surrounded. The German ring is shattered by waves of American armor. The relief convoy doesn't arrive as a heroic trickle, it arrives as a flood. German officers begin to understand the scale of what they are facing. Fuel shortages cripple their tanks. Panthers are abandoned by the roadside with empty tanks. Tigers are scuttled by their own crews after running dry. Ammo convoys are destroyed by Allied fighter bombers that dominate the skies whenever the clouds break. The elite edge they once relied on is being suffocated by numbers. And the numbers do not stop. German crews who once hunted Shermans now find themselves hunted in return. American tank hunter teams roam the forests with bazookas and 90mm guns. Mustangs and Typhoons swoop down on exposed armor. Artillery slams into road junctions without pause. Germany's war machine begins to choke on its own ambition. Your Hoffelized Sepp Dietrich watches his offensive collapse. His tanks are scattered, his infantry exhausted, his fuel reserves nearly gone. He had mocked the Sherman. Now it is everywhere. Every road, every breach, every counterattack. The battlefield has transformed. What was once a surgical German thrust has become an American encirclement machine. And there is no room left to maneuver. On January 3, 1945, Patton's Shermans surge again. They hit German positions from 3 directions at once. German resistance breaks into isolated pockets, then disintegrates under continuous pressure. This is no longer a contest of tactics, it is a contest of survival against an industrial tide. The Germans cannot replace what they are losing. The Americans already have replacements warming up kilometers behind the front. By the second week of January, the Ardennes offensive is dead, not with a dramatic collapse, but with a relentless grinding down. German units retreat through the same forests they once surged through in triumph, now hunted by aircraft, shelled by artillery, stalked by endless columns of Shermans. The laughter is gone. The mockery is gone. What remains is cold calculation and growing dread. Germany's last offensive has failed, and the machine that crushed it was not a superweapon, not a wonder tank, not a miracle gun. It was mass, steel, oil, men, and an assembly line that never slept. As the snow begins to melt and the wreckage thaws from the frozen earth, one truth becomes unavoidable on every German command frequency. The Sherman did not win by being invincible, it won by being unstoppable. And ahead, beyond the shattered forests of the Ardennes, the road into Germany itself now lies open. By mid-January, the Ardennes is no longer a battlefield. It is a graveyard of engines. Frozen Panthers sit nose down in ditches. Tigers stand abandoned in farmyards, their massive cannons pointing uselessly at empty roads. Fuel trucks lie scattered like carcasses picked clean by Allied fighter bombers. Snow drifts over everything, hiding what power once roared here. And through it all, the Shermans keep moving. You can hear them before you see them. A distant metallic growl, steady and unstoppable. Columns stretch for miles. Every village that falls becomes a refueling point. Every crossroads becomes another launch pad for the next armored push. This is what the Wehrmacht never prepared for. Not inferior machines, but infinite ones. Near the village of Novelle, remnants of a German panzer battalion try to regroup. They have 3 Panthers left, 3 fuel is rationed in buckets, not tanks. Ammunition is counted shell by shell. The crews sleep inside their vehicles because there is nowhere else to go. Every man knows the truth, but no one says it out loud. They are already dead. At dawn, American artillery finds them. The first shell lands short. The second walks closer. The third punches straight through a Panther's engine block. Flames erupt. The crew bails out, some on fire, slipping on ice as machine gun rounds cut through the smoke. Then the Shermans arrive, not in a daring charge, not in a dramatic breakthrough, but in rows. 5, 10, 15. The remaining Panthers fire, knock out 2, maybe 3. It does not matter. The next wave crushes what's left. By noon, the German battalion ceases to exist, not because it was outfought, but because it was outproduced. In American rear areas, the system hums without pause. Damaged Shermans roll into field workshops and emerge patched and ready within hours. Crews are replaced. Ammunition belts stacked higher than men. Tank after tank after tank moves forward like links in a living chain of steel. Somewhere in Detroit, Chicago, and Pittsburgh, factory lines pour out more machines than Germany can destroy in an entire month. The battlefield has become an extension of the factory floor. German officers begin using a new phrase in their reports: enemy armor in unlimited strength. It appears again and again. Berlin cannot ignore it. But you cannot command fuel that does not exist. You cannot order steel that will never arrive. You cannot stop a flood by shouting at it. Near St. Vith, a German Tiger ace named Oberfeldwebel Karl Fischer sets up one last ambush. His 88mm gun is perfectly positioned overlooking an approach road. The terrain is tight. The sight lines are long. In any other battle, this would be slaughter. The first Sherman appears. One shot, direct hit. Fireball. The second follows. Boom. Destroyed. The third burns. The fourth retreats behind smoke. Karl's crew shouts in triumph. For a brief moment, the legends feel real again. Then the smoke lifts, and behind it, there are 13 more. Karl fires until his ammunition rack runs dry. His loader slams the last shell into the breech with shaking hands. The shot hits its mark. Sherman explodes, and nothing. The Americans return fire with everything they have. Rockets. High velocity, armor-piercing rounds. Machine guns hammer the hull. The Tigers hit once, twice, then a third time in the side. The inside becomes fire and metal fragments. By the time the snow settles again, the road belongs to the Shermans. Forever. By late January, the German retreat becomes irreversible. American armor slices through the west wall. The Siegfried Line collapses. German towns fall one by one under constant armored pressure. Where the Tigers once terrified entire divisions, they are now hunted relentlessly at takeoff points, rail yards, and repair depots. Even the reputation of German armor dies here, not in a heroic last stand, but in running battles they are never allowed to win. Sepp Dietrich's reports grow shorter. Then they stop. Entire formations vanish from the radio net, not surrounded. Not annihilated in one grand moment, but eroded, hour by hour, shell by shell, until nothing remains but scattered survivors moving west on foot, and the Shermans do not slow. As the Bulge flattens back into a front line, Patton's armor drives directly toward the Rhine. The same tanks once mocked as death traps now punch into Germany itself. They cross villages under white flags. They roll past civilians who stare not in fear, but in stunned resignation. The rhythm of the war has changed. Germany is no longer attacking. Germany is collapsing. For every German tank lost in the Bulge, 10 Shermans stand ready to replace it on the road to Berlin. The balance of power has permanently tilted. Not because one weapon proved superior, because one nation could afford to lose machines and still come back stronger the next morning. And as American armored columns grind forward toward the Rhine, German commanders finally understand what the Sherman truly was. Not a duelist, not a masterpiece, but an executioner built by assembly lines and delivered by the thousands. The Rhine is still weeks away, but the war in the West is already decided. You can feel it in the air, not as victory, but as inevitability. Mud replaces ice, with it comes movement, relentless movement. American armored columns advance along shattered roads that were once Germany's shield. Bridges lie in pieces, rail lines are twisted metal. Whole forests are shredded into splinters from weeks of artillery fire. The Ardennes no longer hides anything. It has been skinned bare, and the Shermans keep coming. German resistance now is different. It is no longer aggressive. It is reactive, desperate. Tank crews receive orders to delay, not to advance. New panzer groups are formed from scattered survivors, older men, and half-trained replacements. Tigers that once led formations now appear alone, like wounded animals, forced into ambush roles they were never designed for. Fuel is no longer allocated by mission, it is allocated by hope, near Huffless. A mixed German unit attempts one last blocking action to Tigers. One Panther. For Panzer IVs, against them, approaching from 3 separate roads, are over 60 Shermans backed by self-propelled artillery and infantry carriers. The German commander knows what this means. he attacks anyway. The first Tiger wrecks 2 Shermans at long range. The Panther destroys another. The Panzer IVs engage from the flank. For about 4 minutes, it looks like earlier wars. Then American artillery speaks. High explosive rounds rip into German positions with brutal precision. Infantry surge forward under smoke. Tank destroyers appear on the ridgelines. Air support circles overhead, hunting for engine heat. Within 20 minutes, the blocking force no longer exists. It is not a battle, it is erosion. On January 25th, Bastogne is no longer surrounded. It is merely another waypoint behind the front. Patton's relief has transformed into a continuous armored sweep eastward. Sherman columns now move on schedules measured in miles per hour instead of objectives per day. Engineers rebuild bridges almost as fast as Germans can destroy them. Supply trucks run non-stop. And still, at German headquarters, officers struggle to understand how their elite armored force was broken. They were promised superiority. They were promised wonder weapons. They were promised shock. Instead, they faced pressure. Endless pressure. Intercepted German communications begin revealing something new: despair. Phrases appear that would once have been unthinkable: fuel exhausted, vehicles abandoned, men retreating without orders, position untenable. The invincible Panzer arm is no longer the spear. It is rubble. In one ruined village near the Luxembourg border, an American Sherman platoon pauses to refuel. Tank Commander Lieutenant Robert Hayes climbs out of his turret and stares at destroyed German armor lining the road. Panthers, Tigers, assault guns, half-tracks, they lie burned, overturned, torn open like discarded toys. He touches the side of his own tank. It is scarred, pitted, repaired with rough welds and mismatched steel. But it still runs, he says quietly. They built theirs to be perfect. We built ours to keep going. That truth now defines the war. By February, Hitler's last Western reserves are gone. They were consumed not in one great battlefield drama, but in hundreds of smaller fights they could not sustain. The Bulge has collapsed. The German army has lost. Over 600 tanks and assault guns, thousands of irreplaceable veteran crews. The last meaningful stockpiles of Western fuel, and worst of all, they have lost time. Time is now America's deadliest weapon. Factories continue to deliver. Training camps continue to fill. Convoys from Britain never stop. While Germany strips anti-air guns from cities to support the front, American tank battalions receive fresh vehicles before their old ones have even cooled. For Germany, every loss is permanent. For America, every loss is paperwork. In Berlin, Hitler rages at his generals. He demands loyalty, demands sacrifice. He demands attacks that no longer exist in reality. Sepp Dietrich is blamed. Model is blamed. Everyone is blamed except the man who ordered the impossible. But deep inside the command structure, the truth is already known. The Ardennes was not the beginning of a comeback. It was the final expenditure. And now the Shermans turn east, toward the Rhine, toward the heart of Germany, toward the cities that built the weapons now lying frozen and burning behind them. If the Shermans' greatest victory came not from superiority, but from saturation, what happens when that saturation finally breaks into the Reich itself? What happens when quantity becomes occupation? Because what comes next is not just the defeat of an offensive. It is the mechanized invasion of Germany itself. Nothing in the West now remains capable of stopping it. March 1945. The ground is no longer white with snow. Torn, drowned in mud and steel. The air no longer screams with desperation. It hums with inevitability. And the Shermans are everywhere. They move through broken villages, past shattered churches, along highways cratered by retreating engineers. Their engines echo through valleys that once carried the voices of German civilians who believed the Reich would last 1,000 years. Now it barely has months. You can almost feel the shift, not just in territory but in psychology. German resistance still exists, but it no longer fights for victory. It fights for delay, for negotiation, for survival. And behind every delay stands another American armored column. German tank crews now face a reality they were never trained for. It is not tactical defeat, it is statistical suffocation. They no longer ask, "Can we destroy the enemy?" They ask, "How long before the next wave arrives?" They move cautiously, stalking through smoke and ruined factory districts. Their gunners still hit with deadly precision. Every Sherman they destroy still burns. But the burn no longer matters. For every tank knocked out, 3 more arrive. Then 5. It is arithmetic. American tank units now rotate through combat zones on schedules measured in exhaustion management. Tanks are replaced without ceremony. Crews transfer to fresh hulls as casually as switching vehicles. The machine never pauses. Supply trains stretch across Belgium and France like steel rivers. Fuel pipelines snake across the countryside. Rail hubs vibrate day and night. This is not an army. It is a moving factory. On April 1st, 1945, American forces encircle the Ruhr pocket. 300,000 German troops are trapped. Inside the pocket, there are still tanks, still guns, still soldiers. Shermans line the perimeter like watchtowers on treads. Their commanders do not feel excitement, they feel closure. Across Germany, civilians emerge as the armored columns pass. Some cry, some shake with fear. Some simply look relieved that the bombing has stopped. They see row after row of identical tanks and finally understand what propaganda could never hide. It was fighting a system, and everywhere those arrows point, there are Shermans. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler commits suicide. His war ends not under the tracks of a King Tiger, but under the pressure of millions of machines that never stopped coming. In the West, American tankers receive the news not with cheering, but with exhaustion. Some sit on their hulls and smoke, some clean their guns. Some write letters they never expected to survive long enough to send. The war that had once been decided in minutes of terror is now ending in weeks of slow realization. After the surrender, Sherman crews drive past German tank graveyards. They see the elite machines they were once warned to fear. Tigers with their turrets blown off. Panthers split open. King Tigers abandoned without fuel. Their monsters made harmless by hunger. And then they look back at their own machines. Scarred, dent-filled, still running. After the war, German officers write memoirs. They speak of superior optics, thicker armor, deadlier guns, and then, reluctantly, they admit the truth. They did not lose to better tanks. They lost 2 more tanks. 2 factories that never went silent. 2 logistics that never broke. 2 replacements that never stopped arriving. They lost to mass. The Sherman will never be remembered as the strongest tank, or the deadliest, or the most feared. It will be remembered as the tank that kept coming. When fear failed, when fuel vanished, when elites fell, the Sherman remained. At the Battle of the Bulge, German generals laughed at it. They called it weak. They called it a coffin. They believed their elite machines would smash it aside in one final glorious strike. Instead, they were buried under it. Not by brilliance, by pressure, by industry, by numbers that never stopped multiplying. Because in the end, World War II in the West was not won by the perfect weapon. It was won by the weapon you could replace every hour of every day. And no army on earth could survive what the M4 Sherman truly was. Not a tank, but a tide.